moving right along, we're gonna actually control the backside to be solid. And because they're a hair system, we can actually do that by going to the follicles and tell these guys to be solid. I'm gonna open that, and that's all my follicles. Let me go select hierarchy, and then hit the Shift H to unhide the curves actually that are underneath the follicles. The reason I do this is because it's easier for me to grab all the curves. I hit up button to select all the follicles that belongs to the back. Those are the guys that are supposed to be static. So I'm gonna group those guys together. Oops. Control G, right? I'm gonna call this guy back follicles. And let me open that and grab every individual follicles inside and go to channel box underneath shapes. I'm gonna tell the simulation method to be static so they're not really simulating. Okay. Now let's play the animation. You can see now the back seems to be stiff and not really moving. Right? So that seems to be cool, but there is a little catch here on this process though. They are actually moving a little bit. The frame rate, you can see they're shifting a little bit, not quite solid. The bone is moving without any offset because it doesn't really have any dynamic. You can see this part is actually moving a little bit. Okay. So the reason for that is because we have two set of curves. Don't know why, but you have two set of curves. The actual output curve are the ones driving the hair, and we don't see them. To see them, you have to grab all the curves again and press the down arrow button on the keyboard to select their shape node. Go to Edit, Channel Control, and go down here and grab Visibility and pull them back in, and you toggle the visibility up to 1 to show those curves. Okay. Now those are actually the dynamic curves. If you take a look at the follicle, I'm going to hide the follicle and the curve underneath them. This set of curves are the actual dynamic curves. As you can see, if you play the animation, you can see those curves are moving. Now because I disabled the dynamic of the curve on the back, you can see the curve on the back actually stays there. It never really moves. Right? That's the problem. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to frame 1. Control 1 to isolate. I still want those back curves, these guys, to be actually following the head. So I'm gonna grab them, grab them again. Right, Control G to group those guys. I'm gonna call those back curves. With the back curves, I'm gonna shift select the body and do a deform, a wrap deformer. Make sure that you check on exclusive band and create. What this does is creating a bunch of wrap deformers from the head. As you can see, we have a wrap output, a lot of wrap output actually, but we only have one new low base geometry to perform that. Basically, we're wrap deforming those curves now, right? And that's going to force them to follow exactly. Okay, as you can see, it's more solid now. So now we have really defined the back part to be just stays there and not really simulating. Alright. Now you can do that of course on any individual ones if you want to keep them solid. I'm gonna go ahead and grab out my curves here and Control H to also have those curves. Alright. So let's take a look at our simulation now. It's really hard to tell with this simulation speed because it's not in real time, so it's hard to tell how those hair behaves correctly or not. So I'm gonna go back to frame 1. I'm gonna also say disable the visibility of the guide so it's easier to just see the hairs. Right. And I'm also gonna hide the joints. So I'm going to disable the visibility of the joints. So that way we can see just, the geometry and the hair. And maybe not even the ones on the bottom, just to make it look fancier. Right? Back to frame 1, I'm going to right click in the timeline and say play blast. In the settings, I'm gonna use 100% quality, the same size, and play blast. This is gonna go through the simulation and record that as a video so that we can take a look at the simulation in real time. Somehow I lost my shadow for some reason. I can already see some clipping happening there between the hair and the nose. You can also kind of see they're getting messy super fast, and that's probably not the things you want to see, right? You want to still have some of the original hairstyle to maintain, right? To be there, and maybe just the bottom ones being moved around, and even those guys are moving too much, causing all the different strands to separate a lot. Okay, now when I see those problems, I'm going to actually stop the simulation. And you can see the problem we're having. Now before we figure those problems out, there's one more problem. When we really see the timing now, you can see the timing doesn't really feel right. It's almost like it's in the water. The movement is kind of slow. If you really think about it, like a real hair shouldn't be lagging like this, right? It should be like instant because it's a really short distance. So the problem is, let me Alt Shift V to go back to frame 1. The problem is in the settings of the nucleus, which is the solver here. Go down to the scale attributes. The space scale is 1, but for every unit in Maya, no matter what unit it is using in Maya, as far as the nuclear concerns, 1 unit means 1 meter. But that's not true in our setup. As you can see, our settings is centimeter. So 1 unit is not 1 meter, it's 1 centimeter. So that means it's 0.01 meter, right? So a unit here in Maya means 0.01 meter. That's what this means, or a centimeter. So basically you have to make it 100 times smaller to really make it work if your unit is centimeter. Let me go back to frame 1. I'm gonna simulate it again so that we can take a look at the proper scale. But again, it's getting even worse, right? It's dripping down like a rubber band. It's also kind of like having this elasticity there, then it jumps out and going down. So that's not good at all. But I'm gonna let it play a few frames, just get a feeling of the timing of everything moves and see if that feels more natural with that new space scale. Alright, let's stop this by hit escape. See now, even they're jumping around, you can see the movement is more natural now, like the timing. Sorry, not the movement, the timing, right? Because we're using the right scale now. Okay, I'm gonna close this one more time. Back to frame 1. Now we don't want this to be looking like a horror movie, right? It's going down too much. So I'm gonna go to the hair system and define some of the attributes underneath dynamic properties. First of all, the stretch and compression resistance, I'm gonna crank these guys up to 100 or so to make them more stiff. Right now, if I go ahead and play blast it one more time, I should see them not really doing a lot of stretching at all, and they're basically just sliding around the face. Alright, so the simulation is finished. As you can see, that's the catch result. Now this is like a horror movie again, right? The hairs are all dripping down, like blocking everything in front of the face. There are some collision happening, but doesn't seem like really doing a very fantastic job. We see some clipping on the nose, right? So that's something we want to fix. Basically 2 things. The hairstyle could be holding better, right? Instead of all dripping down, like instantly loses its original shape, and also clipping happening in the collision part. Okay, so let's talk about the hairstyle holding in the next tutorial. Okay, see you next time.